In all honesty, I think we can all stand to go on a little diet. Not the kind of diet you think I'm talking about, not cutting out sugar, not cutting out gluten, not keto, none of that, but a mental diet. I've been listening to a lot of Neville Goddard lately, and he, if you don't know who he is, he was an old philosopher who was really one of the first people to really preach and speak about manifestation. And he shared this one quote that really struck a chord with me and hence is the foundation of this entire episode. We prioritize our physical diet without prioritizing our mental diet. In other words, so many of us are foregoing paying attention to what we allow into our minds and into our headspace, aka our mental diet. Our mind, our thoughts, our energy, our attention, what we hear. And he goes on to say that this mental diet should be the primary focus, but it's not. Our society talks about physical looks and material things and go on this diet and cut out that, blah, blah, blah. We don't talk enough about what we're mentally consuming, what we're allowing into our minds. And what Neville really speaks to is the idea that our thoughts and our mindset is everything. Everything. It truly does determine everything. It determines how we feel. It determines what we attract. It determines how we see the world. It determines our energy levels. Yet the only diet that we're hearing people talk about is the latest keto trend, right? And the latest food that we need to cut out and the new seed oil that we need to not consume, right? Like that, those kind of diets and nutrition is important, but how come we're not talking enough about mindset diets and mental cleanses? Because it is truly the foundation of how we feel in this life, what our life looks like and how fulfilling this life is. And he shared this other beautiful idea that kind of adds on to this and helps paint the picture a little bit more, that our mind is like a garden and every single negative thought or every single doubt and toxic idea, anything that makes us feel negative and down, it's slowly killing our garden. It's slowly harming the well-being and abundance of that garden. But we don't really pay enough attention to it. We kind of just let it happen without maybe knowing the impact of the negative thoughts and of these things that we allow into our headspace and into our mind. So let's first talk about the negativity that we let in, because a lot of the things that we end up consuming aren't intentional and they might be automatic and we might not even realize how much they are impacting us. But before we dive in, don't forget to press follow or subscribe wherever you are listening or watching on Spotify, Apple, or YouTube. This would really mean the world to me and help me growing the show to make a bigger impact, to help you all step into your full potential, be the inspiration to help make the changes you really want to make. Send this to a friend who you think might resonate with the topic. And if you're new to the show, welcome to Fulfilled. I am Camille, and I want to thank you for taking a step for you today and hopefully improving your life in even a small way today. All right, let's dive in. So the first one are automatic negative thoughts, or in other words, ants. You might have heard this before in the therapy space, but these are ultimately what it sounds like, right? Automatic negative thinking. And we're so accustomed and used to talking to ourselves in this way and thinking in this way that we might not even know that the ants are going on, that the automatic negative thought patterns are constantly replaying in our minds and, again, disrupting our well-being and the garden in our heads. So a couple examples that you might resonate with, that I know I resonate with all of these. All or nothing thinking. So this is thinking in extremes or thinking that things are either all good or all bad. Less than ants. This is comparing yourself to situations or other people, making you feel like you're not good enough. Just the bad ants. So this is always nitpicking the one bad thing about a situation or about a person and just having tunnel vision on the bad. Guilt beating ants. So this one is thinking in words like should and must and ought to or have to again make you feel like you're not doing enough. Labeling ants, attaching a negative label to a person or situation or yourself. Fortune telling ants, so this is predicting the worst possible situation without actually even knowing what's going to happen, but your mind just focuses on worst case scenario. Mind reading ants, believing that we know what other people are thinking without actually having any idea. If only and I'll be happy when ants, this is a great one. So this is arguing with the past or longing for the future. And then finally, blaming ants, blaming others for your problems. I felt weird saying ants so many times there. So again, those are automatic negative thoughts, not like actual bugs. But I'm sure a lot of you listening can relate to a lot of these ways of thinking. I know I am victim to all of these ants, and they are very prominent in my mind a lot of the time. And so I wanted to start off by sharing these because they're very, very common ways that we catch ourselves thinking in. And without realizing it, these automatic negative thoughts are making us feel negative and projecting that negativity onto our life and impacting everything. Another one is negativity from the people and messages around us. The reality is, like I've talked about in other recent episodes, that there is far too much information at our fingertips nowadays. And with social media, we're constantly just absorbing different messages. And the killer about social media is when we're scrolling through, clicking through stories, scrolling through newsfeed, whatever, we have no idea what's going to come up. We really can't filter out what we absorb, the messages we receive. There might be a whole bunch of things that make us feel negative and not good enough, and that trigger a lot of these automatic negative thoughts for us. It's like a shit show if we don't really know what's going to come up, and we're susceptible to feeling good or feeling bad. And I don't know about you, but almost every time that I leave social media, I feel a little bit less than, a little bit worse. And I think it's because our brain just consumes so much and there's so many different thoughts going on, and it distracts us from what we want to be focusing on and feeling positive because there's all this other information that we all of a sudden consumed in those few minutes even. At least that's how I feel. And then the people in your life, right? Like there's a reason that they say that who we are is really a product of the 5 people we spend the most time with. There's a reason we feel drained after spending time with certain people. They might be radiating negativity and impacting you and your garden without you even realizing it. It just might come up in feeling tired and feeling drained. Honestly, I felt this with some of my old coworkers at one of my previous jobs. They always just gossiped and were dwelling on the negative, and it started to really impact me and made me dread going into work even more. And I didn't even like the job. So it was just an added layer of exhaustion and negativity that I really didn't like being around. So before talking about what going on a mental diet looks like for me and how you can go on a mental diet, how does all this negativity really impact us? So ChatGPT and articles helped me out to know that all of this negativity causes mental health problems, depression, anxiety, increased stress, reduced success, perfectionism, limited thinking, relationship challenges. Negativity can impact all of these areas in our life, whether we're realizing it or not. And again, there might be all of these sources of negativity in your life that are really sneaky. They don't seem obvious, but they are not helping the well-being of our mental garden. So what can going on a mental diet look like? Again, there's no diet plan online, but these are ways that I especially recently have leaned into working on having a positive mindset. So the first one is catching the ants. So catching these automatic negative thoughts when they come up instead of letting them run their usual course. Because often their usual course, if you're like me and like any human being, takes us into these like negative thought spirals, and we come up with all of these crazy scenarios and come up with this whole negative reality that isn't reality at all. We come up with this whole story that leaves us feeling stressed and anxious and exhausted. So one strategy I do here is catch it as soon as possible. When I start to notice myself feel a bit anxious or negative, I ask myself, what's the story that I'm playing in my mind? What is that maybe automatic negative way of thinking that I've let creep in? Or that's habitual that just does creep in? Because again, they're so ingrained within us, it's normal. But for me, the sooner I catch it, the better. So some of them are, I should be doing more today. But instead, when that thought comes up, I can recognize that that's an automatic negative thought telling me that I'm not good enough, telling me that I didn't do enough, and I can shift it to a positive one, which is, actually, I made great progress today. So that thought isn't true, and I'm gonna choose that one instead because it's feeding my positivity and watering my garden. Another one is things aren't working out for me and I am not getting the results that I want. Catch that thought. Positive shift is everything is working out exactly as it's meant to on an intentional timeline. So a couple other things that help me specifically with these automatic negative thoughts, because I think these are the biggest things that can really hurt us if we don't start to shift this negative way of thinking. If we just continue in the same cycles and patterns, it's going to keep us feeling stuck. So one big trick, and I actually do this a lot with my clients too, is in recognizing the thoughts that are negative, that are making us feel pretty bad, we can literally pause and ask, is this true? Is this sometimes true or always true? Almost always, these thoughts aren't true. They're just thoughts that feel true because we're replaying them so much in our minds. So the thoughts that we're allowing to really consume us and make us feel so negative, often we're just believing them to be true without actually questioning their truth. When we compare them to reality, part of us might think that it's true, but actually, if we think about it, it's often that they just feel true because we've been replaying them so long. They actually don't match what the realistic situation is. And we can choose more positive thoughts to see the situation in more of a positive light. So again, with that thought that I just shared, because this is one that often creeps in for me, like I'm not doing enough. Again, it's that addiction to productivity and busyness that I've outgrown a lot, but I'm always continually outgrowing. And that automatic negative thought for me is always within the area. It's always in the neighborhood. So if I ask myself, is this true? No. I made great progress today. Like that is literally the truth. So it takes away the power that that automatic negative thought has over me, because knowing it's not true, I don't feel like I need to just like go into that dark hole and fall into that spiral. And finally, another thing that really helps me with automatic negative thinking is affirmations. And don't roll your eyes at me if you're not a fan of affirmations, because this is how we ingrain positive thinking into our minds. I personally listen to affirmations and recite them in my mind as much as possible, because I know the more that I expose my mind to these positive thoughts and this positive way of thinking, the more natural it is going to be for me to naturally have positive thoughts. And the more easy it's going to be for me to shift from those negative thoughts to the positive ones, because those positive ones are going to start to be ingrained in my subconscious and be a lot more easily accessible. So one note on affirmations too, if affirmations feel uncomfortable for you and unnatural and like they're totally not true, this is just a sign that you need affirmations the most. Because the negative thinking might be so deeply ingrained in you that the positive way of thinking might feel so out of left field and so just far from the truth. And all that means is these negative thoughts are starting to feel really true and really consuming and overpowering in your mind. And I had this come up with a client just the other day. We were creating customized specific affirmations for her specific circumstance, to give her the shifts that she really needed to make the changes that she wanted to make. And they noticed this resistance to them because they shared, but this just doesn't feel true. It's not about just shifting to what is true. It's shifting to who we want to embody and the thoughts we want to have. Because like Neville shares, it's our thoughts that determine what is going to be true in our lives, what we will attract. So these affirmations are allowing us to step into that positive energy and that frequency that is going to make this more true. But if we stay stuck in those negative thoughts and don't lean into the positive way of thinking, that will be our reality. It starts with the mind, and our external circumstance, that is just the result. But we often think it's backwards. We think that the way that we think is a product of what happens to us externally. And that's a huge shift I'm making lately, to understand that my external world is a product of the way that I think. And that's why I wanted to do an episode on this, because we need this mental diet. We need to all start thinking more positively to attract what we really want to in life. So if you're really looking for these shifts, if you're noticing these automatic negative thoughts and really resonating to what I'm sharing about the work that I'm doing right now, check out my website linked below. I would love to help you step into your true potential through one-on-one life coaching and help you get clarity on where you're really feeling stuck. All right, back to the episode. So that's the first way we can really start to step into this mental diet, right? Is to catch these automatic negative thoughts and shift to positivity. Again, the sooner the better. Affirmations are key, and questioning their truth, because more often than not, they're not true. Second way that I've been leaning into going on a mental diet is asking myself who I'm surrounded by. Right now, after my move, I'm not surrounded by a ton of familiar people, but ask yourself this question. Who are you spending most of your time with? Is it family? Is it friends? Is it coworkers? And ask yourself how you feel after spending time with them. What kind of things do you talk about with them? Is it all gossip? Is it all shit talk? Is it all negative? Or do you talk about positive, uplifting, exciting ideas? Do you support one another? Do you feel energized after spending time with them? Because again, we are products of the 5 people we spend the most time with in our lives. So for my own mental diet, questions I'm asking myself is, okay, who do I feel drained around and who feels a bit negative? And is it possible for me to start distancing from them and protecting my garden and my well-being? And like I've shared, there's been coworkers in the past that I've needed to set boundaries with. There's been certain friends that I've noticed I felt drained around that I stopped spending a ton of time around because I didn't love all the gossip and all the negativity that I felt like I had to partake in spending time with those people. And on the flip side, who in your life makes you feel energized? Who just radiates positivity, and who do you really love spending time around? How can you embody more of that energy and maybe spend more time around those people to nourish your garden, to think more positively? Because spending time around those people will not only make you feel positive, but we start to embody the traits of the people we spend time around. You know it's true. Okay, third way you can lean into this mental diet, social media diet. Like, this is such a big one. Like I shared, when you're scrolling on social media, going through the stories, scrolling through newsfeed, you don't know what's coming up. Like, it can be something super positive in one reel and then something that makes you feel super self-conscious and insecure in the next one, right? Or something that makes you feel really sad and down. You really don't know what you're getting. And that can make this really dangerous and really be detrimental for our mindset and for how we feel and for the garden and our energy. So I think it's unnatural to say that we can just cut social media out entirely. For a lot of us, it might be our business. For a lot of us, it's how we stay connected to people we're not close to. For a lot of us, we do get a lot of positivity from it as well, and motivation and inspiration. I share a lot on social media, and I hope a lot of you get inspired from that content. But like I shared, a lot of the time when I leave social media, I feel like I'm comparing and I feel like a bit drained, and I feel like I just consumed way too much different information that I didn't necessarily need to, or that I didn't necessarily want to. So some strategies here: unfollow negativity, unfollow certain accounts that always make you feel low, always make you feel not good enough. I recently unfollowed this one account. It's this like girl in sales, and she's like has this whole kind of empire, but her content just made me feel like dirty. Like, she shared certain things that I was like, you are just not a good person. And it made me just feel bad. Like, it felt entertaining, but I never felt good and uplifted and positive. So I decided to unfollow it. I'm like, I know my ego kind of likes the entertainment here, but I know for my well-being and the nourishment of my mindset, this is not the content that I want to be consuming. And this could even mean muting or unfollowing certain accounts that always make you feel insecure and less than. That's a very common thing with social media. And I've also in the past had to unfollow or mute certain accounts that did make me feel insecure. Maybe ones I was constantly comparing to. And whenever I left their page, I would feel maybe not good enough. And that is a me thing. It was triggering my automatic negative thinking, but we can filter and curate our social media feeds as we choose. So ask yourself, how can you filter and cleanse your social media so that it is at least a little bit more positive? Again, we really don't know what to expect when we scroll through the stories and through newsfeed. Like, there are still going to be things that probably trigger us and probably are not great for the garden, right? But we can take steps to make it more of a positive environment and support the positive way of thinking and our mindset that we really want. That's going to set us up for success and to feel good, right? Why would we want to go on social media and just leave feeling horrible about ourselves? And then fourth way to really go on this mental diet. This is my favorite one because honestly, we all need to lean more into this. Simply stop consuming. Not stop entirely, right? But consume less. How many of you relate to feeling like you're always either listening to something or always either scrolling or busying yourself with work or in a conversation with someone? How often are you really just not absorbing information, not listening to someone talk, not drowning yourself out in some music and noise? How often are you just being and not consuming? This could even mean having a podcast or the news on in the background or music on in the background. You might not think that you're absorbing and consuming that, but you really are. And I don't know about you, but that can feel really exhausting to me. And I've started to become very thoughtful when I notice myself feeling a bit tired of listening to things, because I love listening to podcasts and music and even just like ambient frequencies like subliminal affirmations and things like that. Sometimes I just notice myself being like, I really just don't want to consume anything right now. And I shift to silence, like I turn off whatever I'm listening to, and it actually makes me feel a lot more at peace. Like I shared in a recent episode I did about information overwhelm, our brains are not designed to consume 24/7. I think it's a big reason why a lot of us feel anxious and down after going on social media. It's so much information bombarding us at once, and our minds need to rest just like the rest of our physical body. And it can be really cleansing to just lean into being and not consuming and embrace silence. For me, this often looks like meditation, silent walks, just focusing on the thing that I'm doing without having to listen to something. And it can feel uncomfortable at first because the thoughts start to creep in, but sometimes not consuming is exactly what we need. And it's exactly what's going to help us in these mindset shifts, in this mental diet, to really start to nourish our minds and be more thoughtful as to when we want to be consuming and when we don't want to be. So I hope that you resonate with something in today's episode. I hope that you're going to take some of these shifts and tools with you into your mental diet to start to be more thoughtful about all that you're consuming, all that you're allowing in, to shift from all that negativity to positivity, catching the automatic negative thoughts as they come up, really starting to ask who you're spending most of your time around, going on a social media diet, and finally just stepping away from consuming so much in general, giving yourself those breaks of silence. These are all ways that we can start to go on a mental diet. And I've really, really loved listening to him lately, so I'll link that below as well. But if you resonated with something in today's episode, it would mean the world to me if you left a rating and comment on the show, just briefly, wherever you are listening or watching, on Spotify, Apple, or YouTube. This will really support my efforts to grow the community and help me grow the show to make an impact, to help you all step into your full potential and live this life fully. And if you're not already, don't forget to press follow or subscribe wherever you are listening to the show. And I'll see you all again soon on your journeys to living this life fully.